Welcome to the Joyceful Podcast. I'm your host, Virgilla Joyce, a singer-songwriter, vocal coach, gypsy on tour around Australia, and a mama with a song close to my heart. Together we are singing about honouring our self-care first, so we all can serve and lead from a place of abundance. Each episode will be filled with heartfelt melodies that delve into the daily practices and rituals that help us live in our area of genius, while being a joyful mama. Welcome to the first episode. I'm here with Diane Mckendrick. She is a best-selling author, speaker, life coach, and a mama. Welcome.
Thank you, Jill. It's a privilege to be here with you today.
I'm just so excited. I'm just going to go straight into it.
Cool.
This podcast is all about daily rituals and daily practices, because I really believe that success is in our daily practices. So the things that we do every day so that we're filling our cup and serving from a place of abundance. So can you just paint a picture of what life looked like before you implemented daily rituals and practices into your life?
Yes, it's not a very good picture, but I'll share it with you anyway. But first, before I do a little introduction of myself, my name is Diane Mckendrick, and as the beautiful Virgilla Joyce said, I'm a best-selling author, a life coach, and I nearly said performing artist, but that's kind of in the background. So a life coach as well. And what I've been able to do with my life is, using the techniques and the strategies that I teach in my book and daily life, be able to live my dreams in terms of serving other women in business, but also, like you said, be able to self-care and nurture myself. So something I share a lot about is running business and being spiritual while also taking care of yourself, and that they're not mutually exclusive. You can be a nurturing, present mother and a millionaire business owner if you choose to. But the first thing that comes with that is self-care and nurturing, because usually that's the first thing that will drop off once we start to rise up and do amazing things either in our family or in our business. So my life before I had this information was a whirlwind. Like, I didn't know who I was and where I was. I was always really busy, really overwhelmed. I was sick all the time. My joints ached. I didn't sleep very well. 3 o'clock would roll around and I would be so tired, so extremely tired. I didn't know how I was going to get through that 3 or 4 o'clock mark into dinner time and then bedtime with the kids. I have 2 kids, so Ross is 8 and Esme is just turned 6. I was really struggling, and I had this dream. I wanted to run a business, but I knew I couldn't do that feeling the way that I was feeling. So fast forward a couple of probably years until I had to learn the hard way. I had to hit rock bottom, and then I had to seek out alternative methods on how I could self-care and nurture and look after myself better, so then I could be more present within the family unit and also in business as well.
Yeah, I think so many mothers would relate. Would you mind sharing with us what rock bottom looked like to you? Like, what was that push that made you sort of say something's got to change here? I need to implement change.
It was pretty much rock bottom, and I don't often share this part of the story because it's quite vulnerable to me, but I think it's important because there's so many women out there at the moment possibly feeling like this, and they think it's bad or wrong or not accepted. I hit rock bottom before I had my children, which I was really grateful for, because I work with a lot of mums now that the rock bottom comes after they have children, because that is such a massive transition in our life and changing all the models of our world that we've ever learnt. So mine was working in a 6-figure job. Like, I earned a shit ton of money. I had a fancy car. I had the house at Bulimba. I had everything I thought that I wanted.
Sounds like the perfect life,
dream, the perfect dream. And I'd learned from a really young age to push, sacrifice, strive. I was an athlete, represented Australia and Queensland in both swimming and running. So that mindset was set for me really early. So I did the same thing in my job. I worked in corporate. And like I said, earned a shit ton of money and had the car, had the boyfriend, had the house at Bulimba. And I just was walking one day and I caught my reflection in a real estate window. And the question posed to me from something other than my brain, it just came to me and it said, is this all there is? Like, seriously, is this all there is? You get up every single morning, you go to work, you're there till 9 o'clock at night, you come home, and when you get home late, you're starting to drink. Like, I was starting to drink a lot, and I just wasn't coping with life. So I quit my job I was actually supposed to move to Sydney and manage several shopping centres. completely quit my job. And then when I had no job, it was like, who am I? Who am I without that? Because I had identified who I was with the job or with the role. So if I went to a barbecue and I was talking to people and I couldn't say what I did, I didn't know who I was. So I hit rock bottom because there was a period of 2 weeks there that I didn't go to work. I wasn't getting up and looking after myself. I started to drink heavily. I wasn't doing any exercise. I was 20 kilos overweight, which is an enormous amount of weight for my little frame. And just, not waking up till lunchtime through the day and then staying up really late at night and drinking. It was just, really tough time.
Thank you so much for being so vulnerable. It's beautiful. Thank you. So you reached this stage in your life. So it was sort of like, it sounds like an awakening really. So once you got to that stage, how did you implement, daily rituals and practices into your life to create, the person that you wanted to be?
Yes, well, I think first of all, I had to notice how bad I was feeling. But the tricky part for me, and maybe some of the listeners listening to this, was I didn't even realize in what a tight spot I was, because everybody around me was feeling the same. It was normal to be overweight. It was normal not to like your job. It was normal to get out of bed at 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock in the day. It was normal to go out drinking on the weekend. So I was having all these realizations and sort of observing and witnessing outside of my community or outside of my group what other people were doing. And I just started to recognize people that felt different, people with a sparkle in their eye, people that looked fit and healthy, people were eating a different way. So I pretty much committed, when I had that sort of moment, to just attending every single personal development seminar I could think of, devouring books like daily. I would just, instead of sitting there and watching TV, I don't watch a scrap of TV anymore, but I would just fill my brain and I would fill my body with rubbish. So I looked at what other successful people were doing, and I realized that I wanted a relationship, but I didn't feel worthy of that. I didn't know how to be that and how to do that. So I just started attending workshops. I changed the community, the people that I was hanging around. And a bit of a funny side note was, so I definitely changed the community, but I was still around people that criticized and whinged and complained a lot, I noticed. And then when I was offering, okay, well, you're overweight, how about instead of catching up next time for coffee and cake, we can go for a walk? And then they would all look at me like I had two heads, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that. So what I did, Jill, is created my own community. I got really clear about what it was I wanted to call into my life and how I wanted to feel, and how I wanted to feel every single morning when I woke up, and woke up in more senses than one. I wanted to wake up on purpose, activated. I wanted to be surrounded by people who also felt like that, or knew that they wanted to feel like that and they didn't quite know how to get there. So that's what I created my life and my job and my work about. So now it's my mission in life to be that and do that for others. And then together with the community that I've created, teach others how to do that for their pockets of the community.
I just love that, because there was so much in what you were saying that relates to my story. And I think it's really powerful because I was the same. So my sort of, I want to say transformation. I think that's a better word for it. But yeah, I was 4 months into being a mum and I had no idea what I was doing. And I was kind of surrounded by, a mum group that was beautiful, but it just wasn't fulfilling me in the way I wanted it to. And I think that's amazing because my first coffee meetup was one of yours. And I kind of made this decision in my head, okay, well, I want to be, what do they call them? Entrepreneur?
A mumpreneur.
A mum, that word.
Yeah.
I can't say that word. One of those. And I didn't want to have the guilt attached to it, being this, first time mum, and I had all these big dreams. So I knew I had to change my community so that I could change, my views and my beliefs. So I think that's really cool. So thank you for sharing that. And I did mention guilt, and I learnt a lot about mama guilt and how to resolve it. So I would love to talk about, mama guilt. So for anyone that's, listening to the podcast and they're thinking, yes, I want to put myself first, but, shouldn't baby come first? Shouldn't my husband come first? Shouldn't everybody else come first but me? So can you just give us some tips or, how we can look at mama guilt? Because it's a thing.
Yes, I can. It's a real thing. It is a real thing. And it's one of my favorite things to talk about. It can be a little bit tricky because it quite often will trigger people. Guilt is a feeling, a state or emotion that can be very gripping. And it is in chapter 10 of my book. It's the last chapter of my book because it was the hardest one to write. I've also done my own podcast series where we talk about guilt, and I go through really succinct, easy ways to dissolve the guilt from within. But now, for the sake of the podcast and all the listeners, I think one of the most important things in terms of mother's guilt is to, let me pose this question to you like this. Because most of us, naturally and intrinsically, are looking after our babies first, and then our husbands, and then everybody else, and then us. My question to you, or the question to the listeners, and the question to myself when I first started was, if I crash and burn, and I can't get up and look after everybody, who does it? My children will suffer, my husband will suffer, my community will suffer. And that was painful enough for me to flick my whole identity around guilt. So now ask yourself that question. If you crash and burn, who looks after everybody else? And straight away it changed for me. So now I've made a commitment to put myself first, which therefore is putting everybody else first as well. But when I changed that, that's when the big, massive shift happened for me. And it still happens. It still shows itself. It's a big topic. I recognize it in a feeling in my tummy. So the first part of the awareness for yourself and all the listeners is, where do you feel it in your body? Let's wake up to that feeling. Let's recognize it. Let's stop trying to push it away and see where you feel it in your body. So for me, it's in my belly. I get a yucky feeling in my tummy. And then I name it and I go, oh, that's guilt. Because what often will happen is I can do option A, B, C, D, E, or F. We're all just offered a plethora of things that we get to do in this lifetime. And we're also busy and overwhelmed. And I recognize the pattern of myself and my clients. We had several options to choose from. We would choose one. I can go to the beach and play with the kids. I can stay at home and write my book, as an example. And if I chose to go to the beach and play with my kids, I would feel guilty because I wasn't at home writing my book. And vice versa. If I then chose to stay at home and write my book and I didn't go to the beach with the kids, I would feel guilty. So it was like I wasn't giving myself an option to have the freedom of feeling good about the decision that I made. So 1, awareness. Recognize how it feels in your body. 2, that it comes and it's presented to us because we have so many amazing options to choose from. 3, choose the option and be present with that. So in that circumstance, I chose to stay home and write my book. And the key is presence. If I am present in that moment with my book and with my choice, there's no space to feel guilt. If for whatever reason the feeling comes up and it keeps coming up and I can't stop it, I'm out of alignment. I haven't asked the question or the processing deep enough. Or maybe it's not aligned with my values, which is probably another really cool podcast to talk about.
Yeah. I'll link to, because I'm sure you've spoken about guilt in your podcast.
Yep.
And I'll link to all your stuff so people can get more of you. But what you've just said is a great start. It's beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. I've got one more question for you.
Yes.
What's one thing us mamas can do right now to lead a more joyful life?
Celebrate each other.
Oh, I love that.
Because, and it makes me quite teary actually, the background that I come from and what I see out there globally and in the collective and in business world and sometimes in the spiritual world as well is women tearing each other down. When somebody does really well, there's criticism, there's comparison, there's competition. And I know because I come from that background. And I didn't know any other way. I was an athlete. I was always going to win. I was going to push harder. I was going to eat better. I was going to train harder than anybody else at the expense of anybody else, at the expense of myself and my own health and my own nurturing. But that one thing that we can do is genuinely and authentically celebrate your sisters. Yeah. When someone does something amazing, celebrate that as though it's your celebration. And I feel like Jill's here with tears in her eyes as well. That is the key. Yeah. People will go to the textbooks and do the $10,000 courses and sign up for this and do the platinum this or whatever to get in and around the right people. Every single one of you have access to this right now. Yeah. When you hear that someone does something amazing, celebrate them. And it's going to, I'm so aware of it. And sometimes my ego will get in and go, oh, well, what does that mean for me? Or I haven't done well enough, or I didn't show up. It's not about me. It's about creating these solid connections and celebrations of the collective so we rise up together. The name of my book is The Rise Up, The Soulful Guide to Success. And people want to know all the tips and all the strategies, but if you start with celebrating every single one of your sisters wins, even the people you don't like. It's okay not to like people. Don't judge them. Don't bitch about them. Don't gossip. Don't criticize. Celebrate them in their essence, in their area of genius, and send that love. And honestly, Virgilia, Joyce, if we all do that, the world would be such a different place. So that is my wish for the world. And yeah, I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, I can see. And that's why the tears come, because it's straight from your heart. And that's what this podcast is all about, heartful conversations. And the thing that came through to me when you were talking about celebrating our sisters and, just rising up together, I think we want to tear each other down because we're not celebrating ourselves. And I think once we learn to celebrate and honor ourselves, because I feel like we don't do that enough, or we haven't learnt how to do that, I think it will be so much easier to, celebrate our beautiful sisters that are standing right beside us. So thank you so much for sharing that. One more thing, how can people find Diane Mckendrick? How can they get your book? You've got jewelry, you've got pixie cards. There's so many amazing things that you created for, our sisters. So how can they get you?
You can all find me on my website, www.dianemckendrick, DianeMckendrick.com. So www.dianemckendrick.com. You can also come over to Facebook. Same name, Diane Mckendrick is my personal page, or join the Rise and Shine Facebook community. So it's a meetup group where we do online and offline. But yeah, you can go ahead on the website. You can get access to my book, and that is in audio version on Amazon Kindle and also in hard copy. We've got all the beautiful jewelry, which is here, as you said, Jill, to remind you of your power and the celebration of sisterhood. A beautiful deck of pixie cards, which is affirmation cards, which you're one of. You're one of the pixies, the pixie of truth. Where I went out there and I accessed members of the community and women who had inspired me and that I was and men that I was celebrating, and put it all into a deck of affirmation cards. So that's pretty cool as well.
Is there a re-release of them?
There's a re-release, so second edition. There's 15 more cards coming out. Just a few logistical things happening. But yeah, had an amazing team of women behind me, because I've also always been a bit of a lone wolf, worked by myself. And then I realized true collaboration is like win for me, win for them, and a win for both communities where we all come together. And the last question you ask is, what was the one thing? And I said celebration. I feel like the other thing is collaboration. True collaboration, where you're working together for the collective. Not just for you, not just for me, not just for the people, but for you, me, and the people.
Yes, I 100% agree.
Yeah, ties it together really beautifully.
Oh, wonderful. I just want to shout out to a very special person that I hold close to my heart, which is Matt. So Matt Slater Audio Solutions here in Red Bank, where we're streaming from today, or recording from today. I wouldn't be where I am without him, and I wouldn't sound as good as I do without him. So thank you so much, Matt. But thank you for tuning in to the first ever episode, and I'm so excited to chat more with amazing guests and myself, I guess. But have a great day.
Step into the light.
If you're ready to step into the light and serve from a place of abundance and love, join the